It's a Raptor Riot.
Yeah, play up!
Oh yeah, these shell toes are fire. Yeah, musically inclined. Little callback for previous ranked and reviewed listeners. Oh yeah, there she is. Limp Bizkit collection and a sheet of paper. Boom, 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 Wah! Psycho female blowing up the phone line. You ain't the tighten that screw, it's been loose for a long time. I've been slamming with some bad luck. Soon I'm gonna bring the doom with the buck. Excuse me while I take off this vintage 90s Adidas jacket. Burn this motherfucker down! Yo, what's up everybody? This is Jay Dennis and I'm back with another Ranked and Reviewed. And finally, we're doing my favorite band. Not top 20, not top 40, not top 200. My favorite band, Limp Bizkit. Oh man. So, get ready for a 4-hour video because I can talk about all the great reasons why I love this band, how I grew up with them, how they've, in all the best ways, inspired Raptor Riot, and of course how just unabashedly themselves they are. And even though at one point they were the biggest band in the world and they dominated the airwaves, dominated MTV, dominated culture, shit's still timeless regardless of whether people believe that new metal or the turn of the century sounds that still influence people today like myself, fashion, music or otherwise, is still powerful. So, as you saw from my collection, I have every single Limp Bizkit album except for Gold Cobra. It's a hard album to find, and I'm not going on Amazon to buy it. So, but I got a solid collection. I'm gonna rank and review their 5 studio albums. You know, obviously I have their greatest hits and Unquestionable Truth, but I'll talk about those separately. And aside from me mentioning what my top 10 Limp Bizkit songs are, you're not going to hear me rifling through the pages of my notebook where I write down my shit. I know what my ranking is, I know what my favorite songs are, I know what my thoughts are on every fucking album. I've listened to these albums from front to back hundreds of times. All of them. I love them all. It doesn't matter what opinions exist about certain ones, or if some are bad, or some are trash, or some are iconic, or lightning in a bottle for like the year 1999 or something. But I think I'm going to have a unique take on this band. But just a quick bit of history, as I do with most of my videos. Unlike bands like Linkin Park and Sum 41, I didn't completely grow up with these bands actively. I came of age as a young kid, not like a teenager turning into an adult, but I came of age during the turn of the century, skateboarded with friends and all that other cool tech deck shit when bands like Limp Bizkit were big. But I didn't actively listen to them. But when I went back and listened to their greatest hits album back in 2014, I realized I fucking knew every single. So unconsciously, I did grow up with these bands. In 7th grade, I listened to Results May Vary when it was relevant. I remember when Greatest Hits came out when I was in 8th grade. And basically back in 2014 when I was just listening to some music, I found their Greatest Hits album, decided to listen to it, maybe try to get back into an old band, and holy shit, they are the absolute band that reignited my desire to get back into new metal. Because basically from like 2007 to 2013, I didn't listen to new metal that much. I was listening to other stuff in high school and my early college years. But in 2014, just that complete rebirth happened. Before that kind of resurgence that we saw back in 2015 and 2016 when all these other bands tried to start being new metal. Not shitting on them, but they kind of overplayed some of the tropes. But my desire to take some of these sounds that I've heard from Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, other bands, and inject it into Raptor Riot were just fully born alive and made me want to write a whole EP and release it in 2016. It all started from Greatest Hits, realizing that I knew all their singles, all their hits, and then I started working my way back and listening to all their studio albums all the way from front to back and realizing, oh my god, this band's actually incredible. And whether you believe Fred Durst is a flash in the pan or a polarizing figure, you cannot deny his stage presence, his energy, and at one point he fucking dominated. And he's still the shit, so. And of course he's got a bunch of talented musicians behind him. Anybody that shits on Limp Bizkit will usually turn around and say, oh well, but they got these two great jazz musicians, you know, Sam on bass and John Otto on drums. I think they're cousins. And of course you got Wes Borland, who's an excellent guitar player. He's one of my favorite guitar players of all time. He's super creative, he's got some of the grooviest riffs, but then his leads and his ability to manipulate pedals and effects are just basically unmatched. So you take all that excellent musicianship with some catchiness and some hooks and you infuse it with one of the most energetic, hook-infused vocalists and lyricists of all time. For better or worse, in terms of lyrical depth, they had fun. They are an absolute fun band to listen to, and I think it's time we start getting into this ranking. So I'll talk about Greatest Hits and Unquestionable Truth at the end, but for now, let's do their 5 major studio albums and rank them from least favorite to most favorite, but obviously I love every album. And just so you know how much, just so you guys know how much I love this band, the spread from least favorite to most favorite, just between the 5 studio albums, is an 8.8 out of 10 to, of course, perfect 10. And again, I know there's people who hate Limp Bizkit or think they suck, but these are opinions. I fucking love the band. They're new metal gods, and Fred Durst is one of my idols. So that's where the bottom album is going to be. It's an 8.8 out of 10. So number 5 spot, we have Results May Vary. Not a big surprise. This is most Limp Bizkit fans' least favorite album. Anybody that likes Limp Bizkit but are still going to point to a shit album, they're going to point to this one usually. But I like it. I grew up with a lot of alternative rock, and a lot of those sounds are infused in this album, but there's still plenty of new metal elements here. The reason it's called Results May Vary is because they took a risk with this album. You're gonna have different effects or perspectives on what you feel, but after you've put out 3 iconic new metal albums and you've lost your fucking lead music writer, Wes Borland, of course this album's gonna take a little bit of a hit. But songs like Give Me the Mic, Creamer, and Lonely World, Head for the Barricade, Phenomenon too. Those all have new metal elements in them. The bouncy guitar riffs, the rapping, some of the screaming, the intensity, new metal dynamics. But then you got other songs on here that are a little bit more mellow. One of my favorite tracks is oddly Build a Bridge. I love that song. The chorus is memorable. Even if some people would say it's kind of low energy, kind of generic radio rock, I like it. I'm a huge fan of that chord progression. So when I hear Results May Vary and hear songs like Creamer, when I hear songs like Down Another Day or Underneath the Gun, I unconsciously think of being in 7th grade and hanging out with some of my friends and his family like at this Springs, and we stayed the night in a cabin or something. So like I have memories of this album. I have memories to all the albums, but I'm just trying to think more so of like my actual childhood. But for the most part, the song that was on my iPod from Limp Bizkit, like my iPod in the mid to late 2000s, from Limp Bizkit, the only song was off this album, and it was their cover of The Who's Behind Blue Eyes, which is not one of my favorite singles from them, but I don't think it's bad. I like the timbre of Fred Durst's voice. So, and I've also watched the, the documentary on the making of this. Very interesting story behind it. A lot of interesting post-turn of the century stuff going on, the kind of the decline of the new metal boom and kind of what Limp Bizkit and Fred Durst were going through. But, you know, when you really like a band and you learn about what they were going through, it gives you a different perspective of what you hear on the album. But there's a lot of content on this album. It's definitely not the first album I would share with somebody. It's probably the last one I would share with somebody. But it sits comfortably at the bottom spot, but I 0% hate it. Although a few of my least favorite Limp Bizkit songs are on this album. You know, Red Light, Green Light, Phenomenon. Those really are kind of weaker tracks, even though Red Light, Green Light has a pretty solid feature. And tell me when you're ready to roll. Like, shit, what's that called when you falsetto from Snoop Dogg? But I don't know, it's just not a great song. All right, next at the number 4 spot, we have their 2011 release, I think it's 2011, Gold Cobra, another album that got me very much back into Limp Bizkit. I was listening to Greatest Hits on YouTube back in 2014. Full album of this was on the recommended section. I listened to it and I fucking loved it. This album is full of fucking catchy bangers. Like, this is an excellent comeback album. It's just, you can't top their Golden Age albums, their top 3 albums. And Limp Bizkit is like System of a Down and Rage Against the Machine, where they were a snapshot in time. They're an enigma. The odds of them releasing new music years after putting anything out is extremely low. But you never know, we might be gifted something. System of a Down gave us 2 new songs. Rage Against the Machine might be doing something, and Limp Bizkit's been working on a fucking new album since this one. But this was a great comeback album for them, especially for Wes. This was the first album they put out since like 5 or 6 years, and it's full of incredible songs. The actual single Gold Cobra is catchy. They really brought back the new metal sound and the aggression, and of course the great guitar work with this album. And most importantly, they brought back, not that they ever ditched them, but they brought back more of the hooks. Every song pretty much has a memorable chorus. You got a couple of great guitar solos in there, and songs like Walking Away or Shotgun. Is it Shotgun that has it? But anyway, one of my favorite songs is Get a Life. I fucking love that chorus where he screams. I love the bridge. Trying to think what else. You know, just like, I did a lot of weightlifting and powerlifting those days, and I listened to this album quite a lot when I did it. I was listening to like 90 to 10, Why Try, Auto-Tunage. Like, I just remember all the songs and loving it. I don't usually talk about bonus tracks on here, but the song Back Porch is a very underrated Limp Bizkit gem. Very chill, very cool, great looped guitar delay effect that I really love a lot. But all that to say, Gold Cobra would probably also not be the first album I showed somebody, but it does encompass a lot of great different sounds. You know, again, songs like Shotgun kind of have that chill bop. Like, it sounds like a late 90s album, infused with a little bit more of modern sounds and dynamics, but it really is a huge comeback album for Limp Bizkit. It's probably a little under the radar, but there's a lot of great songs on here. And again, the single Gold Cobra is phenomenal, and most people say that Walking Away is an excellent song with a great build-up, great guitar solo, great lyrics, great overall performance. I don't have a track listing on here, so I'm just making sure I'm not missing any songs. Oh yeah, Douchebag. Another fun song. Yeah, it's just a really fun album with a couple of solid, serious moments. Gold Cobra, excellent album. Highly recommend it. All right, at the number 3 spot, this might surprise some of you. I see almost every single ranking that's done Limp Bizkit. I've seen almost every single person put this album at the top. The top 3 are pretty damn close already, but I have my preferences. But the number 3 album actually goes to the iconic 1999 Significant Other. The other 2 albums that are ahead of it do not crap on this one. There's just a slight edge. I believe that this album, out of the top 3, kind of start the weakest. Just like this isn't as powerful as Hot Dog or, why am I blanking out on it? Pollution. But obviously this album has their most iconic singles. It's got Nookie, it's got Break Stuff, it's got Rearranged, just back-to-back singles. Tracks 3 through 5, just 3 solid singles right there. Personally, Break Stuff is a little overplayed, kind of like Rollin'. My favorite single, and probably my favorite Limp Bizkit song, well, top 3 favorite Limp Bizkit song, of course, is Nookie. I love the groove, I love the rap. It's a fun fucking song, and it's played in a very interesting octave tuning on a 4-string guitar. So I love that. But this album is chock full of underrated Limp Bizkit songs. You've got I'm Broke. You've got Don't Go Off Wondering, which has that very like post-grunge sound. 'Cause you don't feel... Like he's just like... Fred Durst is a good vocalist. Like, fuck you if you disagree. Like, he might not have world-class technique, but the man's got energy. Like, watch their cover of Sanitarium when they were playing for Metallica, that Metallica Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. Limp Bizkit fucking stole that show. Like, Korn did great with one, but Limp Bizkit destroyed that set with Sanitarium. You cannot fuck with Fred Durst's energy. And it shows in songs like Nobody Like You. Oh, sorry, I sang Don't Go Off Wondering. Nobody Like You is just another kind of new metal classic that features Jonathan Davis, Scott Weiland, rest in peace. 1999, dude. That fucking chorus, that intro, it's just a staple, man. And In Together Now is another single that features Method Man. And it's pretty solid, but you know, the reason this album sits at number 3 is just because it's got pretty much mostly great tracks, but it just doesn't have the same consistency or the same beyond excellent, near like pretty much perfection that I got out of the other 2 albums. But Trust is just kind of an aggressive, hard-hitting, like heavy song. No Sex has a great hook, a great chorus. I love the song No Sex. I think this is where the album kind of drops for me. The last couple tracks, Show Me What You Got, which is just basically a shout-out song, but it's not as good as Indigo Flow. Lesson Learned and Outro are just kind of... They're not meant to be full songs, but, you know, that's just me being picky. But this is an excellent album. I get why most people put this towards the top, but personally, with regards to singles and with regards to, like, top tracks, I think the next 2 albums do it a little bit better, but again, songs like No Sex, 1999, I'm Broke, and then of course your singles like Nookie and Rearranged. I would say Break Stuff and In Together Now are actually the weaker singles. I think Break Stuff is a little overplayed, but I get why people love it so much, but Nookie's better, and Rearranged is the best. Alright, so we're down to 2 albums now. Which one's going to be at the top? At the number 2 spot, we have the Starfish Navigation System. This album is just, in a lot of ways, like Significant Other. The difference is, though, from front to back, like, it doesn't really ever drop off. The energy's higher. The lyrics are more immature at times. The song depth isn't quite as high, or isn't as mature. They didn't have to write this album, but this is just like one of the best-selling, fastest-selling albums, commercial success of all time. I actually own 2 copies of this album. But the success that they had with Significant Other, the record label said, you don't have to write another album right away, but they were just itching to write one. They were tired of playing the same songs, so they wrote this album. And more than doubled their success with this one. So this album is marginally better because Hot Dog is a better, more fun opening track than Just Like This. And then of course, it's not the same flow, but they front load a lot of the singles. The only difference is they threw Full Nelson in the middle of 3 otherwise singles in a row. You got My Generation, My Way, and Rollin', 3 major singles, but then you put Full Nelson in the middle. But, you know, My Generation is kind of like maybe the break stuff of the album, kind of overplayed, but still pretty solid, great bridge. Full Nelson, which you heard me kind of butcher back there with that down, burn this motherfucker down. I love Full Nelson. My Way, kind of the rearranged of this album, kind of like your more somber, but like hard hitting at times. Yeah, this time I'm gonna let it all come out. Like, you know, it's just a fun song. Rollin' is the iconic Nookie style, like with the dance and with the hook. But then from there, the album actually gets better at the second half, in my opinion. Living It Up is a Limp Bizkit classic that's highly underrated, but a lot of people love it. It's got that incredible looped, delayed guitar. It's got the great chorus, living life in the fast lane. And then of course it's got a huge bridge build up just like Full Nelson does. One of my all-time favorite Limp Bizkit songs is The One. Played that song at my wedding. So my wedding song is on this album. We played other songs at the wedding too, but The One is a very personal, very huge song to me. And it's very underrated. It's got that big, powerful final chorus, which I just love I love that they do that a lot on this album, where they do the choruses, but then the final chorus is the hard-hitting one. They do the same thing with It'll Be Okay. They do that with other songs on like Significant Other. Other songs like Get Your Groove On or Rollin', the hip-hop version, Urban Assault Vehicle, I enjoy those songs. I like that they kind of went that direction and they got with like Exhibit and a few other major acts at the time and did that. It kind of gave this album a little bit of a different flavor. Take a Look Around is another kind of major single, kind of a great build-up over time. This album has 5 singles. It's also got Boiler. Boiler's probably one of the best singles on the album. Yeah, I think My Way and Boiler are probably the best singles on this album, in my opinion. Hold On is another great song. I forgot if it's Scott Weiland or whoever else is on there. Hold On is definitely one of the best acoustic style Limp Bizkit tracks. And yep, I think I commented on every single song on this album. So this album sits comfortably at the number 2 spot, just a couple hairs ahead of Significant Other, just because it's got that higher energy and a little bit more of a consistent flow, regardless of there being a little bit more. This is where Limp Bizkit went full Limp Bizkit. So, but it's an extremely popular album and a new metal staple. So, number 2 spot. I actually don't mind making this video longer because it's my favorite band. And if you're here to listen to me talk about it, I appreciate it. Number 1 spot. I've yet to see anybody else who's done this put this album at the top. But when I do talk to people that are big new metal fans and they write off Limp Bizkit, there seems to be a general consensus that this album deserves respect regardless. The number 1 spot goes to their first album, $3 Bill Y'all. Finally, a lot of Rington reviews I do, the top spot doesn't often go to the number 1 Raw album. But this was Limp Bizkit, in my opinion, at their best. Might have not been at their catchiest. They might have went full-blown Fred Durst or full-blown commercial with Significant Other or Chocolate Starfish. But a little bit of that is here too. And frankly, the raw side of this album cannot be fucked with. This is 1997, mid to late 90s, kind of like the new metal scene really picking up and really gaining steam, with Fred Durst and company really pioneering more of the hip-hop side of new metal. Yeah, Korn helped them get their start, but for a while Limp Bizkit dominated the scene. They dominated everything, and this was kind of the foundation for that. So this album definitely starts on the absolute most powerful trajectory compared to other albums. The intro's memorable. Pollution is the absolute best opening track, because I'ma bring that beat back! I'm not gonna scream at the camera. But yeah, this album is just kind of chock full of songs that have these great build-ups. It sounds a little messy at times, but it kind of gives it that charm, that heavy metal jazz drumming that John Otto does, where it sounds like they're not recording to a click, but it really does just add a lot of charm to this album. You hear that in songs like Pollution or Nobody Loves Me. Be sure to check out the Raptor Riot cover of that song, by the way. I covered that song, Nobody Loves Me. And as you heard at the beginning of the video, Stuck, Psycho Female Blowing Up the Phone Line. Fucking incredible song. This was just Fred Durst at his absolute best with regards to rapping. His scream sounded pretty damn raw too, sounded pretty powerful, and that's what I love about it. I love that this really was lightning in a bottle. Like Significant Other and Chocolate Starfish sound like they're brothers, but this one sounds kind of like the estranged cousin that's just off doing like incredible things. But yeah, pretty much my two all-time favorite Limp Bizkit songs are on this album. Nobody Loves Me and Sour. Sour is such an underrated single. I don't know why Sour didn't get on the Greatest Hits. Greatest Hits only featured Counterfeit and Faith, which are also fantastic singles. But Sour is just in a league of its own, in my opinion. It just sounds like the 90s. This whole album sounds like the 90s. That first verse that you hear with Pollution, with that synth in the background, with the doom 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 doom, like that riff, the rapping, the drumming, everything just sounds like, it just takes me back. It takes me back to where I was living at the time, who my friends across the street were. Like, even though I wasn't actively listening to this album when it was new, this album does take me back in time, and I fucking love it. This album really blew me away in so many ways when I re-listened to it back in 2014, and is really, this album along with Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park and others really do play a massive role in influencing the Raptor Riot nu metal style. But yeah, there's really nothing imperfect about this album. The closing track, Everything, that long ass instrumental, it serves a purpose. I can kind of do without it, but I get why it's there. But this album is pretty much perfect. If the album even just ended with Leech, I would say it's perfect. It's just an aggressive, raw, crunchy song with just a powerful chorus. Indigo Flow, like I said, is the better shout-out song. I'm separating the true breeds, my friends and my family. Like, it's just better than Show Me What You Got. Stinkfinger's got like that Sugar Ray sounding, like bass, and then the heavy chorus, like just the way they dynamically contrast, like kind of like the more soft, like funky sounds with like the heavy choruses. This is nu metal at its best right here. This is the nu metal that I prefer deeply. Faith is an iconic cover. I love Faith. Clunk is another raw nu metal song that sounds very much like Korn. You could definitely hear the Korn influence in like the chorus and at the intro. Stalemate, both Stalemate and Sour both have excellent tapping guitar work in them, but Stalemate's just a great long track. It kind of reminds me of Mudvayne in some respects, like an LD50 era stuff before that came out. But yeah, this is just ultimately like Ross Robinson's best work. And again, basically just the first 6 tracks alone make this album perfect compared to everything else. But even the back half of the album is incredible as well. But you just can't fuck with Pollution. Counterfeit is just the nu metal anthem of a generation before the turn of the century happened. Stuck, Nobody Loves Me, and Sour, man. I fucking love this album. If you want to know what anything else I get tattooed on myself aside from this Architects logo, I'd get this guy right here, who might be Fred Durst, I don't know, but I would get this guy tattooed on my arm if I ever got into a tattoo. So now that I've been talking for about 50 minutes, let's recap from 5 to 1. Results may vary. Gold Cobra. Significant Other. The Starfish navigation system. And number one, $3 bill, y'all. Cause you about as real as a $3 bill, but I'm not. There's no one to blame but you. We cannot fuck with that chorus. It's the most absolute 90s sounding chorus of all time. Can you tell I love the 90s? Anyway, top 10 songs from Limp Bizkit. No Sex from Significant Other. Full Nelson from Chocolate Starfish. 1999, And I'm Broke from Significant Other. Faith from $3 Bill. Living It Up from Chocolate Starfish. The One from Chocolate Starfish. Nobody Loves Me from $3 Bill. Nookie from Significant Other. And of course, my top favorite, probably my favorite song of all time, is Sour. If you guys never knew that about me, my favorite song of all time is Sour from Limp Bizkit. That song alone really elevates this band to like my top favorite. I fucking love the song Sour. It's not even like the heaviest song in existence. It's not even like the heaviest Limp Bizkit song, but just the writing of it and the emotions and the nostalgia that it creates for me. It's just, it shan't be fucked with. Unquestionable Truth was another great comeback album where they brought West Borland back for a spell. It's very consistent. The only song I didn't super much care for is The Channel, but every other song, especially The Truth and The Story. My favorite song on the album is actually The Story, another song where he plays in the octave tuning, much like Full Nelson and Nookie. The Story's got a great chorus. I love it. The Truth has that epic drop B riff. Channeling a lot of Rage Against the Machine sounds in this album. Very underrated, and I've noticed that a lot of Limp Bizkit fans kind of, the same way they say $3 Bill, y'all, is objectively a great album, they say the same thing about this one too. So, honestly, if I counted it as a full album, it would actually be below Results May Vary, just because it's technically an EP, less content, but I love this sound out of them. And then, of course, the album that really got me back into Limp Bizkit, Greatest Hits. I love it when a band's greatest hits album either gets me into them for the first time or gets me back into them. It happened with Green Day, it happened with Blink-182. I'm trying to think of who else it's happened with, but in my childhood, certain greatest hits albums really got me into a band. So, you know, their singles aren't always my favorite songs, but the collection that they put here for the most part is pretty solid. It hadn't occurred to me that they put Build a Bridge on here, but the bonus tracks, Why? Great radio butt rock song. I loved it. Same thing with Lean on Me. And then their cover of Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home. It's pretty good. It's not my favorite, but you know, it's not terrible. So yeah. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you're a Limp Bizkit fan too, comment what your favorite songs are, what your ranking would be. Any stories about certain albums? Did they have an impact on you in the 90s or during the turn of the century? Or are they timeless? Are they underrated? Were they just a flash in the pan? I don't think so. I think they're timeless. But I get it. And be sure to subscribe to my channel too. I mostly do metal videos for these ranked and reviews, but I do talk about other stuff. I do have other new metal albums that I talk about in more depth. But I have been doing other genres lately too, and I do a podcast. So be sure to subscribe, leave a comment. I do reply to most of them. And thanks for watching.
Put me in the ground, now I'm back on the new sound. For those that never knew, I was yearning for first place to see how success tastes. I cut ties to the ones that try to hold me down and thought it'd be a win, not having me around though. Yeah, I want a secret to invest on my ideas and my talents just to see what will go best. So I'm back again. I got a whole new style coming straight from the underground. I'm back again.
Boom, 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 What? Psycho female throwing up the back. And now that I've taken off, I can burn this motherfucker down, down, burn this motherfucker.